What's up, everybody? This is round 3 of the District 14 Hare Scrambles series at Twin Bay in Ellsworth, Michigan. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the guys that actually put this track together. They did a fantastic job. This was not my best start of the year. Probably not one of my better starts ever. I don't know what the deal was. All morning the bike started first kick, and of course come race time it just didn't want to function. So I don't know what the issue was, but I definitely ended up with a fueling issue. So what we're going to do here is take you through just kind of the carnage of the first lap until I run into some issues, and then we're going to skip to the third lap when I finally figured out what the issue was, and we'll show you the whole first lap, or the whole lap of the track anyways. So right there's Deck next to me on the left. I didn't get much footage of him at the Portland race, but Portland was his first race, so this is his second time out. And, kudos to him, because both his first and second race he has completed. And anybody that does these Hare Scrambles knows that as a rookie, or at least, your first couple races, the biggest issue is just trying to complete them. And, that's something that I haven't really been able to do this year. So I did get lucky. I made it the full 2.5 hours today. I didn't get the laps that I should have in, but for my own mental sanity, I had to make sure that I completed the time and got the checkered flag, because I was starting to think maybe with the new rule change with the 2 hours plus a lap, I was really starting to second guess whether or not I was even capable of completing a race. So yeah, like you see there, there's a whole bunch of carnage going on, and these hills are super steep. Check out the off camber, when we're going through sections like this, check out the angle of the ground, and that'll give you a pretty good idea what the grade of these hills really is, because the camera doesn't really do it justice when we're going up and down them. And they're pretty steep, and there's a lot of obstacles. There was big rocks. This ground is pretty soft, so it got chewed up pretty bad. Some really nasty ruts. This guy here, I don't know his name. I haven't seen a printout of the scoring yet, but I do know, because he was parked next to us, that he came from Ontario. I realized, as far north as we are, there's a good chance that he came up through the UP, or came through the UP, so it might not have been too far of a drive, but geez, if he was from over in like Windsor or Toronto area, that would have been a drive. So yeah, here we are, we're just picking some people off, and I don't know, I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention. I'm guessing that I may have gotten up to somewhere around 10th place or so before I had the issues that I had. Hard to say. It doesn't really matter, because I lost all those positions here in just a minute anyhow. But we got Stanko right here in front of me, and Jeff's right in front of him. Pony down. Goes down. It takes a little slide off there. Not a big issue. I'll say right now, my back was only feeling about 40% before this race, so I had already changed my strategy, where typically I would go all out and actually be racing. I was trying to turn this more into like just a fun race, more just a trail ride with my buddies kind of situation. And take it easy, and I think that strategy worked out pretty well. Now, as you see here, like in that little area right there, that dirt gets pretty black, and And as we keep going back and forth here, it gets darker and darker and softer and deeper, and it's just turning into a swamp. And remember, this is only the first lap. So once I show you the third lap video, you'll see kind of where it goes. And right there, you know, I almost went over the handlebars because it tried to stop me. And watch out, Jeff, because I'm coming at you. Oh! Almost took him out. Now, right there, my engine died. I didn't know at this time what had happened, but after 2 laps of fighting the engine dying like that, I had lost, I think by the time I edited it, the time out of this video, or out of all the files of my video, that I had lost somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 minutes. Now, if you listen, that is the sound of a bike that's not getting any fuel. And I thought that I had sucked up some dirt into the jet or something like that. But I run a fuel filter in line, and I run a sock on my air filter, and I had just changed the air filter, and so I really wasn't sure what was happening, but it ended up being the vent line on the bottom of the carburetor, or on the carburetor, had sucked a bunch of mud up into it. So by the time I came back after 2 laps of fighting with it, Jeff was there. He had injured himself, and so he helped me figure it out. Cut off 1.5 inches of that line, and it ran fine the rest of the race. So here we are. This is the 3rd lap, you know, right back at the start, and we'll take you through the whole 3rd lap. And this track was 9 miles long, so I only got 3 laps in with 30 minutes of downtime. So yeah, as I was saying, my back was not feeling great, so I was already planning on just pacing myself and taking it easy. I knew I wasn't going to be riding at a full race pace like I want to. So you'll see in this lap, I do stop or move over for a lot of guys, just because I knew this was the last lap. I didn't know who was or wasn't battling for position, so knowing that I was already at the tail end of our field, there was no point in me trying to get in the way of anyone. If you're coming up on me, go ahead, because all I'm going to do is get in your way and slow you down. That's not cool. So, with my back acting up, you know, I spent a lot of time. I had purchased a second rear wheel to mount my enduro tire on, so that, because for the Portland race I had put a Michelin Starcross 5 hybrid sand tire on there, and I didn't want to dismount it, so I bought this used wheel off eBay, and oh, what a nightmare. Long story short, I ended up finding 5 different cracks in the wheel lip, and I had one of my best friends go ahead and weld it up for me. About 4 hours of grinding and welding on it, and we finally got the hoop back in shape, and the hub cracked in half when I went to go change the bearings and seals. So that's going back. I just picked up another one from a guy right here in Grand Rapids for the same price that looks basically like brand new, and it comes with a brand new sand tire. I have no use for that, so if anybody watching this video wants a brand new sand tire, I'll give it to you or sell it to you for a couple bucks, whatever. Let me know. I won't ship it though. So, yeah, the bike, I spent so much time with that wheel that other than getting the rear brakes fixed, I really did nothing to the bike between this race and Portland. So I was not feeling prepared like I normally do. You know, I when I come to the track, normally all the maintenance on my bike is 100% done. I've gone through my checklist. I know every nut and bolt is tight. I've checked everything. This was not the case. So I really wasn't feeling that great about this race to begin with. I didn't even get really excited about racing today until we were at the starting line, which is very unusual for me. Typically, I'll be amped up like the night before, like ready to go, and that's not how I was feeling for this race, and I'm not really sure why. I think part of it had to do with, you know, it was a brand new track that no one had ridden, where, you know, places like Portland, I've been there. Even if the track changes, I'm comfortable with the property. I kind of know where I am. So, you know, it's a little bit of unsuredness that made my confidence a little bit shaky, but, you know, also the fact that I had this sand tire on, which ended up probably not even being a bad thing, because this track ended up being pretty sandy and or muddy, which the scoops on that tire really did help me get through the mud. The issue was these downhill sections, because it's a paddle, I had almost zero braking ability, so I really was using a lot of front brake on this track. That pine tree just whipped me in the back of the neck. That's why I said ow. But yeah, so I was having a lot of difficulty braking on these downhill sections, which I'm sure everyone was. But the Shinko tire that I normally would have ridden on this track has a lot more bite on slippery surfaces than this tire did, and so that was a little sketchy. So right here is kind of almost like a quarry section. Like I said, you know, this track has a little bit of literally everything. So it was a really cool track, extremely technical, and a lot of fun. You know, I don't think anybody that I talked to said this track was easy, but I also didn't hear anybody say that they didn't have a good time. So again, kudos to you guys that set this track up, because it was a lot of fun. So if you noticed back in the woods section there, I passed Deck, who had kind of crashed on one of the off-camber turns, and I had asked him if he was all right as I was going past, and he probably couldn't hear it on the video, but he yelled at me, "Yeah, I bent my bars again." Now, I didn't catch any footage of him when we were at Portland, but that was his first race, and after my brake line had been cut and I was back to the truck just waiting and hanging out, watching the rest of the race with my wife and kids, Deck had come in and his bars were tweaked. So we loosened up his triple clamps and, you know, torqued them back straight, and that worked. Well, he told me after this race that, yeah, he'd fallen once and tweaked the bars one direction, then he fell a second time and tweaked them the opposite direction. So I was messing around with him and said, Deck, you gotta tighten up your bar or your triple clamps if you don't want them to get tweaked. But yeah, so this is the area where I went off that cliff in the very beginning down into that swamp area. So as you can see, no more mud in the vent lines. I can keep going, and everything's gonna be all good the rest of this race, so no major issues. But yeah, once we cleared that line out, my lap times were, from what I could gather on my video, my lap times were averaging somewhere around 55 minutes for a 9-mile course, or I think they said that once they rerouted everything, it was like 8.4 miles. So clearly I was struggling with the bike not running, because I was still riding at a similar pace to what I am right now. So it wasn't like I was riding slow. But yeah, it was just a long track, a rough track, and when your bike's not running for 15 minutes out of each lap, it makes for a pretty long day. But yeah, I ended up, I think this lap was roughly 38 minutes, and that was even with at least one fall, and it took me a good minute and a half or so to get it started once I tipped it over and stalled it out. But yeah, you look at this ground here, you got some massive ruts, and even on the first lap, there was guys with their bikes just buried in there. So, this track, even though we thought it was going to be dusty, it really was just almost kind of swampy. And I'll tell you one thing, that stuff didn't smell too good. I ended up actually riding this whole race with no goggles, because until I went into that swamp area on the first lap, I had my goggles on. But after that, my goggles started fogging up so bad, I couldn't even get them to clear out. And even if they would clear out enough that I could see, as soon as I'd put them back on my face, they'd fog up again, it's really unusual for those goggles, because they usually breathe well enough that they don't ever fog up. So it must just be the terrain here. It was slow enough that I just couldn't get the airflow through them to keep them from fogging. But so yeah, I ended up just taking them off, and when I was fixing my vent tube, I ended up just leaving them right at the car, and that was a little bit of a mistake. I took a lot of dirt to the face trying to keep up with people on this third lap. So it was what it was. I think I'm still picking mud out of the corners of my eyes still. But yeah, so here's the areas of the track that you guys haven't had a chance to see yet. And again, not in any hurry to try and slow people down. So the guy on that Kawasaki was coming up behind me, and I was purposely trying to let him go, and he was just slowing down with me. I said, you saw my helmet shake there. I was like, come on, man, go. I'm not trying to hold you up, especially not through these woods. I mean, I'm not feeling super confident with this tire, because there are some pretty rooty sections where this tire's not really good. So I was really just trying to stay out of the way and let the guys that are still racing race. But yeah, a couple of them I had to really kind of encourage to, hey, you caught up to me, go. And I realized he didn't technically catch up to me. He was stalled in the woods there, but I figure he's got to be at least riding somewhat faster than me. He's probably done more laps than me at this point. So yeah, there were a lot of rocks and stuff in these trails that, boy, if you weren't paying attention, you'd end up in a tree really quick. And again, look at the angle of the video of the ground profile here. These hills are really, really steep, and if you end up going or falling down the wrong way on one of these hills, it's an awful lot of work to get that bike picked back up, or even straightened out enough to actually do anything with it. There are a couple instances where I had fallen or started to tip over, and even when I was able to catch myself, it was on such a steep angle that I could hardly even push myself back up to keep going. So yeah, it was like I said, it's super challenging. Now this section here coming up on this corner is another one that they kind of rerouted. Look at all of that to the left is just total swamp, and then we went all the way to the right here where those logs and stuff was open, and look at all that swampy stuff. We rode through that on the first lap, and yeah, they rerouted us around that, thank goodness, because boy was it getting tore up. This little log section here was roped off, I believe, the whole time, and I wasn't sure why, because, well, it looked like it might have been pretty swampy too, but I thought, boy, that, would have been kind of fun anyways. I probably would have done it just to do it. And then down here, I'm going to go right, but if you look off to the left, there is another really swampy section that we did go through on the first, and for some people on the second lap also. But then they ended up rerouting us to the right there off that ridgeback, which that ridgeback was another cool feature on the track. It was just really, I think it was probably 4-foot wide path that was all whooped out. So, you had to be paying attention. But again, another kind of fun, cool little technical feature in the track that, you don't normally see, especially not in a Hare scramble. So this section here I was having trouble with without goggles, because we're going pretty fast, and my front tire would occasionally fling some dirt up in front of me and go straight into my eyes, so I almost blew this corner. But luckily I was able to get my vision back fast enough to make it. So again, right here, this is just another case of the wrong tire. I could, even with the front brake, I could not get slowed down enough for that corner. But, it is what it is. And you can see there where this track really is kind of sandy. So, in some cases, the tire that I have on here really did work well. And again, in the muddy sections, I didn't even have to really try to get through it. It just kind of scooped me through. So, I wasn't feeling great about the tire selection when I showed up. But by the end of the day, I was like, well, maybe it was a better selection than I thought I was making. So, yeah, these sections here, it just kind of does this switch back and forth and through the pine trees, and I think, yeah, right here we're going to go back into this kind of rock quarry looking area, and this area right here, they changed how we got through it at one point, but they never eliminated the obstacle in any way. And there were a few times, I mean, the second lap for sure, I spent a few minutes just studying it because it was getting so torn up that there was no good clear line to take. And that area is coming up right here, is coming up in just a minute. I'll point it out. Actually, it'll be hard to miss because I crashed. It was one of those situations where I was trying to look ahead to try and find my line before I got to it, and when I did that, I actually, right here, my front forks, the bottom of my fork dug into the side of that hill, which forced my foot peg to dig into the side of the hill. So now I'm kind of like trying to paddle it up this hill. I get back on and instantly gave it too much gas and fell over. So that was a little bit embarrassing, but no harm, no foul, I guess. But again, where I fall coming up here, I was looking for my line, and as I was coming into the corner, I just caught the edge of the berm that had been starting to build up, so it was, you know, just really soft, deep sand, and it just took me right out. I think it's right in here. Yeah, I think we come around this to the left, and then it'll happen. So, another bad thing, you know, having to pick the bike up 3 times within about a minute. That kind of wore me out here. Yep. So I'm coming in here kind of nice and slow, and I'm kind of looking off to the left right here, and boom. It is just hit that pile of deep gravel and sand right there, and it just ate the front tire. And of course, my luck, the bike died, and I was pinned under the bike. My left leg was pinned under the bike. I think I tore something in my calf trying to get my leg out from under it, because my calf is really, really sore. It may just be that something hit my calf, and so it might be bruised, and it hasn't shown up yet. So getting the bike refired actually took probably about 2 minutes of pretty steady kicking. I just kind of cut a chunk of that out to save a little bit of time on here, because I definitely do apologize that I know this video is long, but you know, with a long track, it just takes time. So as you see there, you know, that's where I was saying the tire, I really felt like in some cases kind of helped me out. You know, that gravel pit area there, it was kind of like a slurry of water, sand, gravel, and like silt. So there was some of it that was kind of slick, and I came to almost a complete stop after I came up over that little hill, and I still just barely gave it enough gas. You know, I was trying not to spin the tire because I didn't want to bury myself, and yeah, just letting it walk itself out. It just, you know, it did exactly what I wanted it to, and it walked itself out. So we're up in here, and you see those big old boulders in the trail. Those were hard to miss at times. But yeah, you see this section really, it wasn't too bad. But you can see that in certain areas we really started to get down into where it was really more muddy than anything. And so boy, some serious ruts started forming here. I think coming up any second here, we're gonna hit one corner where the ruts would just swallow your whole bike. Yeah, I know there's fast guys coming that I know are still racing, so I'm looking for them, trying to make sure that I stay out of their way. And the track did not go that way most of the time, and actually on my second lap, it was not in that condition when I came through, so I was a little caught off guard when I had to go to the left of that tree, because that section had deteriorated rapidly in one lap. Of course, it was one lap for me. For the guys that were actually out there riding like they're supposed to, it was probably 2 laps. So again, you know, it doesn't look like this is that steep, but boy, it was like just braking all the way down that hill. That kid's got his bike just buried in there. Yeah, it was not too bad. That one you could get out. You could still see the top of the tire. Right here, I thought I was in trouble. I followed that and it just kind of dumped me right into that rut. And luckily I had that tire on because it gave me just enough bite to get the front end up, and it just walked itself back out. So I was able to go or keep going without too much trouble. There was one section right near the timing and scoring on the second lap that had a really deep rut in it that I actually did for the first time have to use my tug strap that I put on there last season. I put it on there after getting my bike buried at, I think it was Valley Trail Riders, and I didn't have it on there then, and since then I've never had to really use it. But yeah, this track I had to one time on. It came in handy, and so I'm just really glad that I had it, because we were coming around one of the off-camber turns, and the rut was so deep that both tires came right off the ground, and it was just wedged in this rut. So luckily I was able to pull the front end up high enough to get it to wheelie itself out, and then I was able to just pick the back end up and get it out of that rut. So I know coming up here, I go to the side of this jump, and I normally would never do that, but I hit that jump on the other 2 laps, and to be totally honest, I was just getting tired. So I could tell I wasn't the only one that had done it, and the top of that jump was starting to get kind of chewed up, so I really didn't want to hit it funny and, you know, end up crashing and hurting myself, because like I said, my back was already not anywhere near 100% before this race started. So I told my wife before I went out, I said, look, you know, my whole strategy is just to go out, have fun, and not push it too hard, so that hopefully I wouldn't fall. Obviously I fell a couple times, but I did fall a lot less on this track than I normally do, and it was a much more technical track than what we normally ride. So I think all in all, I did a pretty good job. This section right here, I call it the corkscrew area. This was probably my favorite part of the whole track. This was really fun. You could just, you know, put your weight on the pegs and just let it eat around some of these corners, and it was just really fun to just rip around. And surprisingly, it really didn't get that torn up, considering the speed that most people were holding through these corners. So I don't know, the dirt must have been a little different in this area than where we were riding most of the time. Now, going up in here, I did not like the lines that they had going through these trees. There were better lines to be ridden, but I kind of walked this section of the track before the race, and they did warn us before the race that, hey, there's barbed wire out there, so don't be trying to take any shortcuts. And sure enough, I mean, when we were out there walking the track before the race, we found the barbed wire, and there's quite a bit of it out here. So I was really, really nervous to go off of this trail, because as we were walking it, that barbed wire was within 4 or 5 feet of the tracking spots of the trail. So on these off-camber hills, or, you know, yeah, off-camber hills, whatever, you really didn't want to go too far off of the beaten trail, because there's a very good chance you were going to hit some barbed wire. And yeah, there's nothing better than getting snagged on barbed wire. So this section here was just so tight and so steep that it was really uncomfortable riding. And yeah, at one point here, I think I can't remember if it's in this lap or not, but at one point here, I actually start to fall, and it's so steep that I had to get off on the right side of the bike, and then, you know, my seat was at my chin, so then I was trying to hold the bike up in a way that I could actually get around the bike to get back on it, and yeah, it was just a really, really uncomfortable, uneasy feeling. But you know, again, it's part of what made the track so much fun, because it wasn't easy. And let's be realistic, anybody that's out here doing hare scrambles isn't doing it because it's easy. We do it because it's a challenge and it's fun. So I tend to like the challenges, even though, you know, in a lot of these situations I'm technically riding over my skill level and over my head. It's okay, because pushing yourself to ride different terrains than what you're comfortable riding makes you a better rider. Now, I didn't hit these jumps as hard as I did on the first and second lap, but it's because my back was really starting to bother me. So launching it off these jumps was not necessarily a good idea, and these jumps, or the jumps were spaced in a way that if you were planning on trying to catch the backside of a jump, you really needed to be moving. And I was not I was not feeling like that was a great idea today. That one I never did hit hard, and I should have, because it was a baby jump. This one, I never felt confident enough to go for. This tabletop coming up here, I did, right here. And I went so nose high that, I mean, yeah, I had to grab a lot of brake to get that thing not to go over backwards. And these looked like they could have been doubled, and actually I did watch at least one guy go through here and double all of them, which, you know, it didn't look too hard, and they weren't spaced too far apart. I just, when you lay up on all the other stuff, you kind of get into layup mode, and you don't grab the throttle hard enough to actually complete a double. So it's fine. I'm definitely not a professional motocrosser. I'm not that great at jumping unless I have time to really practice and get my speeds down. So I'll take it easy on the jumps when I don't know them. So that nasty swamp creek there, there was the most foul smell coming out of that creek. And I mean, you can see it. It's just like rotten, nasty, black mud. And there was some weeds that were in this side of the hill that had like this really strong, like almost peppery smell to them. It was really kind of nauseating. It was gross. But I guess that's my biggest complaint for you guys was the smell. I guess all in all, that's not that bad. So here again, you know, really, really steep. And as easy as everything was getting torn up, it was really more of trying to control the throttle. You notice a lot in my videos, or I notice anyways, my throttle is very rarely steady. It sounds like I'm always constantly rat, 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 rat. And it's actually not intentional, just so that you guys know. I really think I need to buy one of those throttle tamers, because I've given myself as much play and as much free play in my throttle cable as I can, and it still doesn't really feel like enough. And so the bike has such a quick low end twist to it that, you know, it really burps pretty quick. And so I really do think I need to get one of those throttle tamers to just kind of make it more smooth. That I almost feel like in some cases, and when I go down in turns and stuff a lot, really what's happening is I'm accidentally giving the bike more gas than I want to coming out of the corner, and it just spins the tire and throws the back end out away from me, which, if you've got traction, you know, letting the back tire spin a little bit isn't too bad. But when you're on a really slick or really hard packed surface, it doesn't usually work really well. So we're coming towards the end here. Yeah, right here we're coming up to the tires, and right about here is where on my second lap I saw Logan Palmer walking his bike out of the woods there. I'm not sure if a linkage bolt fell out or if the linkage itself broke on his 125, but when I came back to the pits to fix my vent tube, his bike was sitting on the rear tire. The rear fender was on the rear tire. So that was quite a sight. But yeah, so this was the Twin Bay 2018 race. Again, thank you guys for putting this on. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully you have us back, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, even though it was a little bit long and, you know, in some cases maybe a little boring. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next one.